afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Ali, Coram, and Justin Nielsen here with a breakdown of the action in today's session. And you know, Justin, there's headlines out there. NASDAQ closing at a record high. Nvidia up 2% before earnings this week. But you know, the more important headline that's probably only on investors.com is that we started a power trend today.
Yeah, so I'm not going to get into too many details on it because you and Mike went really deep dive on it on Friday. So for those that missed that, definitely worth watching and just exchange everything where it said we may get a power trend or we're likely to get a power trend for we have a power trend. And that did happen today. But we'll also cover some stocks because there's a lot of stocks that are setting up really nicely, which is exactly what you want to see when a power trend starts. So we'll go over a few today, including AppLovin, in which I do have a position myself and is on Swing Trader. Also Monolithic Power and Booking.com.
Sounds like a plan, Justin. We'll do that. But first, let's take a look at those major indexes. The NASDAQ today up 0.6% by sessions close in new high ground. The S&P 500 today coming off its intraday highs a little bit here, up about 0.1% on the day. Also in positive territory was the Russell 2000, which was on pace for a gain of about 0.4% headed into the final stretch of the day. And the Dow slightly lower on the day, right around that 40,000 mark, down about 0.5% today. But the NASDAQ is where a lot of our focus is on these days, Justin. And as we said, we've got that power trend. And on IBD Live, I mean, it felt almost hard to keep up with all of the stocks that were moving today. So as you said, that's exactly the kind of environment that we want to see when we have a power trend.
Yeah, and we've had some really ideal action here. Let's just start with a couple weeks ago when we had that big move above our 50-day moving average line on the NASDAQ that really just kind of changed the tone. You know, before that, we got up to the 50-day line, we got turned away. There was reason to be cautious. But once we got above that 50-day line, we really started showing some power. And then what I really like is we settled down. We had 2 strong days and then really went very tight. And then last week, we really saw at the beginning of the week, some real strong power ending in that, push to new highs, all-time new highs on the NASDAQ on Wednesday. And then what did we do? We just held tight again. And so today we kind of, went into new high ground after going tight for a couple of days. So we're in this pattern of, okay, we thrust, we pause, take a break, and then thrust again. So this is really constructive action. And we have, as you said, we've got a lot of stocks that are setting up, giving us opportunities. Some of them are giving us second chance opportunities because now as earnings season is kind of getting a little bit, further along, we're having some of these stocks that had great earnings reactions tighten up and now give us second chances.
Yeah, we love seeing that. And the chip sector will have a big test this week with Nvidia earnings and the whole AI theme and the market because Nvidia is such a big weight now. So we do have that. It's not just, okay, we're just going to go out and blindly buy stuff and not manage risk. We're still very tactical with our entries, with our risk management, all of that. But it's incredibly helpful, in my view, to take both approaches, what the indexes are doing and look top down, but also bottom up. What are those leading stocks doing underneath the surface? So a two-pronged approach there, and that's how we're taking things.
And the great thing is right now is you don't have to just be looking at tech, or the Magnificent Seven, or just this small sliver. You've got a lot of choices out there in a lot of different groups. So that's kind of ideal in this situation. And look, you really should be looking at how is your portfolio kind of diversified because look, Nvidia's earnings are important. I do have a position in it, as do many of us on,
yes, as do
on
I.
the show. And you're going to have to look at, okay, what things could also move in the same direction as Nvidia? Look, if Nvidia's earnings are great and it skyrockets, you're going to see that effect in the market. But you have to look at the other side, right? What happens if they disappoint? And it doesn't necessarily mean that Nvidia is going to zero, but it could have a stronger reaction to the downside than what your portfolio can handle, especially the correlated stocks or, it could bring the whole tech industry kind of to a little bit of a shakiness. So you do have to kind of keep that in mind and adjust your portfolio accordingly. Now, again, this is a great time to be a little bit more aggressive. Again, you had the power trend start today. We're trending nicely. The market is doing everything that you want it to do. Plus, you've got those stocks setting up as well. So it is time to be aggressive, but you have to still include that risk management part of things.
Yeah, we're not just going to throw caution to the wind, even though so much is looking great right now. I'm breaking out left and right or gapping up. So there's plenty to look at. So it is quite an interesting time. Any other index level thoughts, Justin, before we move on?
Well, I'm not a big fan of looking at the Dow personally. Now, if I were a big fan of it, this would give me some caution that you get up to 40,000 and you get turned away. But we've been talking for a long time about how there are flaws with this product, and even the Wall Street Journal, who, remember, Wall Street Journal was created by Dow and Jones, kind of said, "Hey, look, there's some problems with this being price weighted and everything." So again, just on a technical side, that does kind of look a little funny, that it got right up to 40,000 and got turned away. But I don't think it's that big of a deal because, again, you see some
Yeah.
of the other areas that are just so much stronger. And you've got, again, participation from a broad spectrum. I think the 30 stocks of the Dow, while they do a decent job, it's not the full all, be all end all story of what's happening in the market.
Absolutely. And let's take a look at the 10-year Treasury yield up on the day. We had an upside reversal on Thursday. So now 3 days back up in a row after finding support at the 200-day line, perhaps heading back to that 4.5% mark. But even though in general, we tend to see an inverse correlation
Right.
between the yields and equities, would you say it's notable today that the Nasdaq was able to have a nice gain even with yields up, or just, it's one day, don't read too much into it?
Both. Yeah, the answer is yes. I think, because yes,
Yes.
it's one day. You don't want to read too much into it, but you should always know when there is a divergence from what you would expect. And as you said, there is an inverse relationship here. As the 10-year Treasury goes up, you do expect that stocks are going to have a little bit more trouble, especially on the small cap side. So looking at the Russell 2000, that, but even the Russell 2000 wasn't down today. It held in pretty well. So yeah, I think you always want to note when there is kind of a shift or a divergence from what you expect, especially when things are inversely correlated. And look, again, the correlation thing is very important because when you have crises, a lot of times you get things that are correlated more so than they normally would be. I look back at like the great financial crisis, 2008. If you thought, oh, I'm diversified, so I've got all of these non-correlated assets, everything got correlated then. But it can also happen on the upside where sometimes the market is so great. Let's just take the late 90s, for instance. It really didn't matter what you hit. Everything was rocking. So there was no kind of correlations that were, oh, this is moving in a different way than this. Everything was kind of moving together. So I think it's always important to kind of take into stride when those things diverge. Just as one example, look at the XLU. We've been talking about how strong the utilities have looked. Normally you don't get the market going in such a strong way with utilities going up like this as well. That's a very unusual thing to happen, but you can kind of put a story to it because of the power and infrastructure needs that are going to be out there for your AI chips, your EV cars, all of the technology
Data
that we're.
centers.
Yes, exactly. You also have, let's just take a look at CPER. This is copper. As part of that infrastructure, you're going to have some of these metals, these industrial metals that are really kind of needing to take front and center for some of these things. So there's a lot of different areas that are looking interesting and looking very strong besides just tech. We could go ahead and take a look at XLK. Remember, this is the Technology Select Spider Fund, and this is, really dominated by Microsoft and Apple. Those, together are like a 40%. But, it again, it's not just tech. You've got utilities participating. You've got, you're a lot of consumer. We've been talking about the retail restaurants. You've got a lot of different areas that are participating here, and I think that just makes it a lot more fun of a market, really.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll continue to take things day by day. Let's take a look at APP, Justin. Up 2.5% today, an upside reversal at the 10-day line. And you mentioned move up on earnings, go tight, move up again. So that's what we're seeing here.
Yeah, and this is just again, I do have a position in this. I bought it today. We put it on Swing Trader, so I had to wait 30 minutes until I bought it because of our restrictions. But there were a lot of stocks that had this look today, where you saw an earnings thrust, big move. Maybe you were like, okay, you know what? I can't justify to myself buying something that's up 14, 15% in a day, and
Mhm.
I'm going to wait. And guess what? You're getting kind of rewarded in some cases. Now, look, sometimes they just keep on going. They never look back. But a lot of times with these earnings gaps, they will hold tight. They will kind of get support right where, in this case, right where you wanted it, right at 80, kind of the bottom of that gap up day. It got support there and just kept on going tight. And now you're kind of popping up above a little downtrend there. And that's exactly the kind of action you want to see. We're seeing that also. Sweet greens, that was another thing that we put
Yeah.
on Swing Trader today. Very similar
Mhm.
look to this. It had a very powerful move, 34% that it was up, and that was off the highs, by the way.
Yeah.
34% it was up that day, and then it just really went tight and then popped up again. So this is a pattern that you just need to get yourself familiar with, because it can often provide you those second chances on stocks.
Mhm. It absolutely can. Okay, let's take a look at MPWR next, which had a nice day after breaking out of a cup with handle last week and then hanging around that buy zone in a tight fashion as the market went tight late last week.
Mhm.
Now up 3.5% today. So solidifying the breakout.
Yeah. So again, you had the breakout, the tightness, and then here's your second chance now. So a little bit different, in that you are already above kind of that previous high, but similar in a lot of ways. So if you had been acting a little bit quicker today, this is certainly something that you could have added. It's still in that buy zone, that blue shaded area for position traders. With swing trading, you have to be a little bit more precise, because you're up 3.5, and if you're looking at today's low as where you're going to be, I
Right.
mean, that's kind of stretching it, right? As far as how far you want to be from your risk management side. But also on the risk management side, you've got to keep in mind, again, Nvidia earnings. There are a lot of chips that are set up like this. A lot of stocks in this space. Just pull up SMH real quick. This is the
Right.
VanEck Semiconductor ETF. Looks very similar to a lot of these stocks. You've got, Taiwan Semi, you've got Nvidia, you've got, a lot of stocks that are looking very similar. So you
Mhm.
could, again, if you wanted to be a little bit more diversified in the space, but still have that exposure, you could go with an SMH. I again have my position in Nvidia, a few other things that I have as well. But that's where my big position is. And so now
Yeah.
you have to make a decision coming into Nvidia's earnings on Wednesday after the close. What do you do in terms of your risk management? Do you hedge a little bit just in case, or do you say, okay, I've got some cushion, or do I have to scale my position back to the area? Again, sell a little bit in the space, whether it's Monolithic Power, SMH, SOX. You take your instrument. Do I have to sell a little bit down just in case things come at the worst end? One way to do that, we often look at the option market to kind of give us an
Mhm.
idea. Maybe tomorrow at the end of the day, you take the at the money call premium and the at the money put premium of Nvidia, add those two together, and that gives you a sense of how much it might move point wise. And you just say, okay, if it moves that many points to the downside, what is that going to
Right.
do to my portfolio? Especially if other stocks do this a similar thing that are related.
Yep. Decisions. And I know we'll be talking a bit more about that on Tuesday and Wednesday on IBD Live and probably the show too. We'll see.
Mhm.
We'll see what happens
Yeah, I
over the
don't want to
next
speak for
couple
Ed or
of
Ken.
days.
I don't want to put words into their mouth, but
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
Never know.
something. And you know what? We were kind of doing our prep call meeting for the podcast, and we taped the podcast Wednesday after the
Oh,
close. So we're gonna have Jim Ropel on, and we're gonna kind of get his take on, kind of
yeah.
the reaction after the close. Of course,
That's great.
everyone can take pot shots the next day if he's wrong, because you're gonna see what it opens at. But it's that preparation part that is the most important thing.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. That'll be an interesting conversation. I'm looking forward to that. Let's take a look at BKNG. Justin, when it moved on earnings, it didn't have the best close in the world. It did fade quite a bit by the end of the day, still managed a gain of about 3%, but quickly got back up and going and an orderly pullback here. Today, up 1.6%. It looks like it's on the verge of clearing a downtrend in a handle.
Yeah, so sometimes this happens where the earnings reaction again is a little bit, to be desired. And look, this can even happen. This same pattern can happen on an intraday chart. Sometimes
Right.
it starts really strong, and you see it in the pre-market, and then it immediately sells off. And the thing is, you a lot of times don't want to touch those, if they immediately sell off at the open, or in this case over a period of, the rest of the day. But what you can do is you can keep it on your radar and say, look, if this is able to kind of recover from it, sometimes they recover that day and you see upside reversals. Sometimes it takes them a little while. In this case, Costco got right back above that high in just a few days, and then it tightened up again, got support again right where you would want to see it. You've drawn the line beautifully. That's exactly where you would want to see the support, and it happened. And then you got the upside reversal today, closing above the Friday's high, really kind of putting things in perspective of a good move here. And look, Booking Holdings isn't alone here. RCL was
Yeah.
another in the space that was kind of coming out of a tight area. So you've got other in the leisure travel space that are looking strong. This is another one that we have on Swing Trader, Royal Caribbean Group.
Mhm.
But again, you've got some participation from more than just one in the space. Yeah, and
Yeah.
here's Viking Holdings, another one that is had a very strong day today. I do have a position in Viking myself, but yeah, you got the whole group that's looking very interesting.
Yeah. All right, Justin, thanks so much for breaking all of that down for us. And thanks to everyone, as always, for tuning in. We'll be back with more tomorrow morning on IEBD Live. So you don't want to miss it. Investors.com/IEBD Live for all those details. We'll see you there. And then we'll also see you right back here tomorrow after the close.